Hi, I'm Ed. Welcome to Common Sense.
And I'm John. How you doing, Ed?
I'm good, John. How about yourself?
Fabulous.
Cool.
So if you're a marketer like we are, you know that successful digital marketing for quite a few years has really required a balance between owned, earned, and paid media. And you know what those terms mean too. So we won't be going through that, but we're going to talk about this balance and how it may be changing now and over the next few years. And we're going to speculate about the future of these three types of media and how
It's
you,
always dangerous.
yeah, it's a little dangerous and probably a little bit on the BS side to most of you, but hopefully we'll make some sense and we'll land in, as usual, in common ground. So why don't you get us started with that perspective?
Well, I think that it's really risky. It's really comfortable, but it's really risky to look at the recent past and kind of extrapolate that out into the future.
Right.
If you were to do that 10 years ago, you'd be drastically wrong. I mean, sure, you could say, well, digital is going to improve, but I mean, it's so substantially different than it was 10 years ago, and extrapolation would simply be incorrect. So, let's kind of catch up to where we are today. Many companies have embraced content and inbound marketing. Of course, there's many that haven't, but many have. And the premise, to state the obvious, is that what we want to do is we want to answer questions people are asking. So when they ask Google, Google connects the dots and pushes them to us, for the answer. That's the way that companies build organic traffic, and that's the way they generate leads, because that same content then helps them convert.
Right.
So in order to do that, companies work to publish a ton of original content on the platforms where they can benefit not only from answering the question, but from accruing an aggregate authority, domain authority, from having a whole bunch of different articles that Google says, yeah, this is good stuff, this makes sense, and weave that web or connect those dots together. Also they'll buy placements on other sites, sometimes paid content and that kind of thing. And a lot of times people will use social media to try to expand the reach of their content. So not just rely on organic search or paid listings, but if they use hashtags sensibly, they can attract traffic from social media to specific content that people might not have stumbled across because they weren't doing organic search, but it will be helpful and interesting to them. So when you look at search options and the way companies have built this stuff, what you realize is that there's really two kinds of avenues, if you will. There's search optimization. So you set it up so that Google or Bing or whoever finds you, but there's also platforms. And then there's a hybrid. Yahoo tried to be both, and it failed. But so for search, you've got Google, you've got Bing, you've got search engines basically that index information. And then for platforms, you've got Facebook, but you've even got Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a B2C and B2B platform in many ways. From a business model perspective, that creates a challenge for Google, because Google's model is built completely on connecting people and pushing them off to somebody else's site or property. And they've made a ton of money doing that. But I think that what we're seeing is a little bit of an evolution where Google's saying, wait a minute, this made complete sense at the time when we still make a mint selling ads, but these platforms are really starting to aggregate communities and create this kind of center of gravity on their own. And so it looks like, as we watch some of what Google's doing, maybe it's worth pausing and rubbing our chins a little bit and thinking about it. So I think you've got an interesting list of examples of stuff that Google's doing that kind of gives us pause. Why don't you run us through that?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have made quite a few changes in the past couple of years. If you haven't been paying attention, the ground has really shifted quite a bit. So when you do a search now, you'll see a variety of things on the search results page, like these so-called snippets, which are boxes that contain a brief summary and it highlights, and sometimes the words are even highlighted, and an image from maybe the most authoritative, popular, whatever they see as the best source for the information that you're seeking in your search. And then right below that snippet, you're going to see another box that says people also ask. And this is going to list a series of questions that are related to your question And when you click on each one of those, you get the top answer as determined by Google. So Google's doing a lot of the work now. It's not forcing you to search by clicking through a bunch of different links and seeing for yourself what the best answer is. It's actually answering for you. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make search as seamless and rapid as possible, as if you were just talking to an expert and getting the answer back. And of course, that's exactly how they're doing it, using AI technology to comb through all the results and come up with a real answer. And then the extension of that is that in voice search, they're using Siri, or Amazon's using Alexa to do the exact same thing, except now that it's more like a human to human interaction, and you're getting results in plain English instead of a list of links. So the thing is that it's not particularly great for marketers, because what this means is the organic search results you used to see more or less near the top of the page have been pushed all the way down, even off the page. So you're lucky, even if you're in the top 3 search results for a given keyword phrase, you're lucky to even be on page 1 in that case. So things have really gotten a lot narrower and a lot more difficult to get on, to be in top of mind, so to speak, on search engines. And I think you're already seeing this. You're already seeing depressing effects on organic traffic. You're seeing fewer and fewer click-throughs. And it's basically what you said. It's Google trying to, in the case of being the most helpful resource for people, they're also kicking marketers out and becoming the resource themselves. And then you mentioned Facebook. Well, they're doing exactly the same thing, and they're trying very hard to, instead of you hosting videos, for example, on your website, they have Facebook Live and they have Facebook Messenger. So you can do all the communication you need while you're in the Facebook app. And it's very mobile friendly, and people are really using these resources and really kind of ignoring websites at the same time. And then there's Instagram and Snapchat and a few others, even more article-oriented sites like LinkedIn and Medium, that are doing the same thing. So it's becoming harder and harder to compete with these platforms, in other words. And you mentioned Amazon. Why would you do anything other than go to Amazon to buy something these days? Because they have all the recommendations for you. They have everything you need. You don't even need to Google products. You're going to get them all on Amazon. So there's a lot of this consolidation, monopolization, if you want to call it, going on. And then you roll in mobile. So now, more than 60% of all searches are done on mobile devices. And soon, if not already, 50% of all searches will be these voice searches. So there's not even going to be search engine results pages being used. So, this is pretty dramatic stuff. And what are your thoughts? What do you think this implies for marketers going forward?
Well, I think we'd be nuts if we said we knew. I mean, all we can do is kind of envision, based on reading the tea leaves, what might happen, or what we think could be the outcome. I guess, I'd start by saying that most of us approach marketing with the core idea that if we've got great, unique ideas that we create content from to answer questions of people and share them sensibly online, that Google will connect us with people. And I think that's embedded in the way we look at the world. And I think that's become a problematic assumption. And so we have to really start with that what if Google isn't connecting people with, the best answer for them? Maybe it's the best answer for Google in some ways, or something like that. I mean, if that comes to pass, then what's the incentive for a company to pay, to invest, to create great content to share online? I mean, sure, there's value when a visitor hits your site. You can use it to demonstrate credibility and build trust and use it for conversions. But in many cases, that's a secondary purpose of the content. The primary purpose of content is to build the search authority and attract visitors to the site. So over the long term, then that means there's probably less that's created and shared. But at the same time, the people at Google are brilliant people, and they have to be thinking a number of steps ahead in this chess match. And so certainly they would recognize that if you disincentivize people to create content, there's less for them to index and serve as results. So, what are they thinking? Who knows? I'm guessing that maybe there's some kind of a model where everything becomes paid, but maybe not in a pay-per-click sort of an ad sort of a way. Maybe there's micro payments for content based on the number of people that read it, or the number of times that Google draws on it for an abstract that they provide to somebody else for an answer. Maybe there's access to analytics that you have to provide in order for them to decide to share your content. I mean, it's all speculation, but it's certainly interesting to think about. In any event, what would be clear in that situation, there's no doubt that the marketer's challenge in that case becomes how to gain access to folks that are looking for solutions to problems that you help with. I mean, that becomes the fundamental challenge, and it's all about reach. And so how do you get reach? Well, I guess if Google's not providing you organic reach, then you have to look at a couple different ways. Platforms certainly becomes one of the primary ways. There could also be social. There can be other groups that kind of have aggregate authority, like trade associations or interest groups that have critical mass. Do you think that's heading in the right direction where this all might be going?
Well, I agree with you that there's no way to know for sure, but I do think we can make some intelligent guesses. First of all, I think what's implied from everything we've said so far is that we need to start rethinking our go-to-market strategies now, and even our nurturing and even our sales support strategies still revolve around content. But what we may be seeing, as you said, is that content marketing really is becoming, and maybe already has become, less effective for top of the funnel, attracting visitors to the website via SEO and PPC in particular, because those big platforms, Google and Facebook, have really changed the rules. So I think we should really start focusing our content marketing on the middle of the which is often ignored by companies. They have great content to attract people, and then really not very much to engage them after the fact, and try to turn them into customers eventually, and support customers going forward. So I think maybe just rededicating your efforts, reallocating your resources to the middle of the funnel and even the bottom of the funnel might make a lot more sense. And then use the platforms that you said, and use more earned and paid media in the middle of the funnel, but try it in a different way. So using paid media, for example, you could do more retargeting and fewer generalized blasts. So you're really focusing on targeting. You're focusing on your content being one-to-one almost, and much more personalized than what we typically do at the top of the funnel.
Right.
So I think, if we rethink our strategy a little bit and use the tools that we have out there to attract people through paid media, for example, then, we still need a good strategy in the middle and the bottom of the funnel. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that absolutely makes sense. And I think you're right that often we focus on attracting prospects as opposed to having full complements of content for each persona in each stage of their buying journey. That's a great point. But in terms of top of the funnel, if we're talking about relying on sources other than our owned media, then there's an upside and a downside. We have to be really careful as we talk about broadening the kind of stuff that we're doing, that we don't allow that diffusion of focus to detract from or cause the quality of our content to deteriorate, because that certainly results in poor performance regardless of how you're trying to attract people. Quality of content is really key. But I think trying different formats probably helps. Well, we've seen a second podcast frenzy come and now start to go. I think that video certainly is on the rise. How long will that last? I don't know. Instagram is demonstrating the power of images, and there's a big thing that we haven't cracked the code on yet, or Google hasn't cracked the code on yet, and that's really indexing video and images really well, the way they have text. And so there's probably going to be a boost that comes from being in some of those medium on different platforms. And I think an interesting possibility that I don't hear many people talking about is co-creating content with customers. It's got to be done in a way that they get value from it. It can't just be you poaching their brand and their reach for your own selfish purposes. But if you create content in a way with customers that helps them too, then you've got an opportunity collectively. You might be able to monetize it for micropayments. You might be able to use it as a way to access their audience, and you get a big jump on the reach that organic search may offer less of, based on some of our hypotheses here. Other ideas? What would you recommend to people?
Well, I think your ideas are excellent ones. I think, really trying more in the earned category. So we're talking about customers, writing co-marketing with customers, also influencers that are out there, doing more things like live events, webinars, and speaking engagements, where you're really doing more one-to-one engagement with potential customers, are really excellent things. They're sort of making a comeback, I guess you'd say. Even trade shows are becoming more popular because there's more of that one-to-one interaction. And then using relatively new tools to, at least to most small to mid-sized companies, like native advertising, where, programmatic advertising, where you're really focusing in on very efficient ways of advertising directly to people who are interested, using AI and using a lot of the data that's out there. That could be a much more effective strategy than just blasting out to social media or blasting out through email.
Sure.
So those are some things we probably haven't done enough of in the small business category, and maybe they're still not cost effective, but it's at least worth looking into. And then I think the other thing we're missing is, what are we testing? Are we really just still testing traffic and reach and things like that at the top of the funnel? Shouldn't we be looking more at engagement KPIs that mean something to our business, like engagements, repeat visits, queries, things like that can be more directly tied to the bottom line. So I think that, we're kind of changing gears a little bit, but I think we still have plenty of firepower to do what we need to do in digital marketing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you look at some of the changes that Google's making. I mean, this whole idea that they will go find relevant articles, extract from them, and create an abstract on their own that doesn't even cite the original sources. I mean, that's definitely something that people need to start planning about. It's not some hypothetical in the future. This is stuff that they're starting to do. And then they've got some interesting patents that are taking it even a step further about blending organic with paid, so that if you want your organic to get some juice, then you got to be spending on the paid as well. So it's stuff that's happening. So as always, a thought-provoking conversation. One, we don't really have the answers the way we like to think we do in some cases. But I think that this is really about asking questions, about keeping your ear to the rail, and talking to people that are paying attention to what's happening, so that collectively you can almost begin to suss out what would be the new best practices. So thanks for stretching my mind a little bit. And to those that have joined us to watch the video, our next episode is going to be talking about a question of whether every in-house marketing team needs its own analyst. There's been always somebody that looks at the spreadsheet and says, oh, well, I think we should do this, or let's look at that keyword. But the overwhelming amount of data and the richness of the data is really changing the digital marketing game. And so, we'll see which side you and I each come down onto initially, whether or not every in-house marketing team ought to have its own analyst. So in the meantime, thanks for joining us. I'm Ed.
And I'm John, and together we're Common Sense. And one exciting additional note, we'll be releasing our first book, Common Sense Revenue Growth, in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoy our conversations, you'll probably find great value in this book, and we'll see you next time.